Yeah, you're good. So, like, I take my guys to all these trainings all over the country, and so then when you bring them back to a class that may not be of that caliber, right now, it's hard to find training that they feel confident in. Does that make sense?
100%.
And so, like, you take a young guy and you take that young guy to one of these classes that's less, and your veteran guys that have been going all over the country with you, going to these great trainings, are like, hey, dude, what's up with this? I don't know about this. This training isn't so hot. Like, what are we going to do here? And so I think there's, in my opinion, I think that's part of the reason that we struggle to get people in local training classes. But I don't know what the solution is, right? Because you can't take a guy and fly him all over the country every night of the week to a different,
I get it. And you hit it right on the head. So there's very few that will be multiple subject. And that's where the ADHDers really shine.
Yeah.
Because that's just like, ADHD is so negative. I know the ADHD has me traveling in so many directions that I hyperfixate on everything.
Right.
So that's where you always hear the saying of ADHD is not a handicap, it's a superpower.
Right.
And I'm a prime example. Of course, when I was a kid, that was not a thing. There was no diagnosis. Like you were just all over the place. It's just what it was. But I think part of that really lies in communication. So right now when I work, even though I contract, I work directly with their markets as if I were an internal employee, which is a gap. That's something that I'm working with them. Their internal instructors aren't really communicating with the local field, working with the sales force, working with the management, working with the shops. So something I implemented for the Midwest, I'm handling now all of the Missouri market. So I now cover all the way from border of Illinois up to Wyoming, technically. We're not hitting anything up there yet. I'm working with them. So that's the other part, right? We're trying to grow, say, hey, you have all this territory. You're only covering this small line here. It's like, you need to, you're complaining that your sales aren't there. So that's why you're not going to do it.
Right.
But how can we improve sales and your loyalty?
Right. Create relationships.
So we definitely...
Well, no, go ahead. Finish what you're going to say. He's interrupting us. Sorry.
So we definitely want to make sure we're creating that. So that's, the difference where in training, and I would tell you, like, well, how do you do trainer? How do you, how are you successful growing the market? It's like, well, you build the relationships. So you become a relationship builder, but you also, you cater to the culture, not to the subject.
Right. So
if I'm going to Texas, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about, let's talk about Peugeot.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, like, we don't look at Peugeot. Like, Peugeot doesn't come to the U.S.
Right.
And it's like, well, why are we going to talk about Peugeot? It's like, I'm not even going to touch it. If I go somewhere where, go to like New York, and I say, let's talk about Peugeot. It's like, really? Yeah, let's talk about Peugeot. Right. I don't see a lot of them here. I mean, they may come, a special collector.
Yeah.
But you just need to do the market research. And a lot of that came from even the Spanish stuff, right? Kind of opening up, hey, guys, there's different dialects within Spanish. So when we do in the written portion, all my translations, the technical terms, the verbiage as far as conversational will be the same because it pretty much translates. On the technical term, I know this one part doesn't translate to Dominican Republic versus Cuba versus Mexico.
Right.
So on the written portion, you'll have that part probably written twice, maybe a third time. Usually 2 words is enough.
Yeah.
In person is a different story. Because in person, we go into a vote. It's like, I know you're from here. So I ask, where are you from? So you're from here, you're from here, from here. You call it this, you call it this, you call it this. Let's vote on what we're going to call it today. Okay. And I think that's where it's been the best success. Letting people know that you understand and you sincerely care about them getting something out of that class. Not like, let me open the PowerPoint deck and let's just get this done.
Right.
What are you looking for? You're going to drive the class. You ask the questions. If I know the class is a fundamental, hey guys, you're ATEX, this has a lot of fundamentals. I'll throw some curveballs here or there. When we're setting up training, so with the Midwest, that I began saying, we do web meetings. So we'll do a team call. It's like, hey, as you're picking the classes, instead of just going based off of the description, because you and I know that you do the best to try to say what the class is, but in the end, it's marketing. And sometimes it may sound better.
Yeah, it's spun a little bit.
Offered.
Yeah.
So it's like, so let's have a conversation. It's like, Andy, what is this really going to? Here's my 10 cents. Here's what it is. Yes, this is an all tech compatible class. It's mostly fundamental. There are no case studies. So now you know that the ATEX, hey, you can go if you want, but they now know off of that, hey, there's no heavy case study. It's not heavy stuff. So whatever.
Yeah.
Now, I've taken a class that I consider a C-Tech class, wiring diagrams, electrical. Couldn't get as basic as that. But then when I talk about what we're going to talk about the difference between DIN, SAE, track system, looking at the identifiers. They're like, well, shoot, I never got any real true former training on that. So yeah, there's no case studies, there's no heavy meat, but I really don't know where to access the glossary. I don't know what SB means, what a module 31 is on a European wiring diagram. And just, giving them, even those are fundamentals, they now know firsthand. Like that conversation needs to happen. And it doesn't matter what training institution it is, which is why I prefer to contract.
Right.
Because I can try to drive that and influence that with everybody else. So it spreads. Because it can't be the Andy show. I don't want it to be the Andy show.
Right.
I want it to be an industry movement that there's a standard created for it.
For sure.
So just like with the other company, the ADAS network, I do training. So you guys do training? No. And people are like, Andy, you do training. Why are you doing training? Because there's not enough of me to cover the nation, cover the world. Right now we have customers in UK, St. Martin, and Australia. Can you imagine me traveling
to try
and how many people can I see at once? That's the other part.
Yeah.
So that's why I prefer to work as subject matter expert and partner up with Advance, PowerQuest, or Kaizen Glass, which is here. So I'm not sure if I didn't think I introduced her yet.
No.
But that's a ASTA first. That's Glass Industries, the very first glass industry person that came into the automotive side. So she's one of my partners in the ADAS network, and I told her I was coming here. She knew I was speaking. She's like, you know what? I'm going to go.
Right.
I said, you won't regret it. Phenomenal show. She hasn't been to Vision either, so she's going to be in Vision hopefully next year.
Very cool.
So trying to break those walls and those barriers of glass is different from automotive repair versus collision.
Yeah, for sure.
It really should be automotive as a whole. So that's why I really love what you guys are preaching, what you're doing, because that's the vision, right?
Yeah.
It should be a single voice.
I agree. Andy, introduce yourself. I know we've been talking for a few minutes now.
Absolutely.
And you'll want to pull that mic right up in front of your face. I like to turn mine a little sideways like that right there so I can talk. Yeah, there you go.
Perfect. There. All right. Coming in clear?
Yeah.
All right. So my name is Andy Tirado. I am the co-founder of ADAS Network and also the owner and CEO of Andy Tirado LLC. Nice. So we handle a couple things. So we do anything all the way down from business development and consulting to technical training and working on training divisions on corporate level, shop levels. And on the ADAS network, we make sure we fill the gap that everybody always is afraid of and wonders about. You purchase the ADAS equipment, you spend all this money, you get 1 day of training of here's how to use your equipment, and then it's figure it out.
Right.
And getting access to that information, getting that support structure beyond just Facebook groups, which Facebook groups are Facebook groups, to get a little bit of everything. We want to make sure that we were replicating what IATN and Diagnostic Network did just specifically for ADAS, no matter what industry it was, if it was automotive, if it was glass industry, collision industry, OE, aftermarket, no matter what. So we put you in touch with the ADAS experts. Everybody on our staff and on our team is currently involved or has been involved in ADAS in some shape, way, or form. They know the business, they know the industry, they know the struggles. And some of us have also dealt with some of the engineering and actual development of these calibration tools.
Right, absolutely. And we're talking about training. We're talking about the fact that how do we get the right training to the right people at the right time? And it is complex, right? Like we know it's difficult to get it to them and set it up in a way that works and make sure that they're actually retaining that knowledge. And I think you're exactly right with everything you said. It's about creating a concept where it's more than just a training class. And I think when you keep bringing up sales and talking about how like some of these training companies, when it comes to the sales aspect, right? They're looking at this and they're the ones picking the classes and they're the ones talking about it. The reality is we don't have enough shops going to training. We don't have enough shops passionate about training, that all of these markets are saturated with good shops that know what training to ask for, that know what training to look for. Oh, we're having a brake class. Okay. Well, what are we hoping to accomplish with said brake class? Well, I don't know. We're just having a brake class. Everybody's going to the brake class. Okay, why? Share with me what it is you're hoping to accomplish by having a brake class. Well, we've had a bunch of brake warranties lately. Okay, then let's talk about what that problem is and let's walk through it and tailor that training in such a way that it's meaningful, that it does something, right? And if we're supplying mediocre training to high-level techs, they don't get it. And if we're supplying mediocre training and it's like high level to the low end guy, the GS tech, it's over his head and he's not getting it and the trainer's not passionate about it. And so it's like always, man, it's difficult to hit the mark with training. And so I've heard there's a lot of people talking about some of these events and they're requesting sponsored trainers, and like it is a money thing. There's no way we can get away from the fact it is a money thing. But if we want our industry to improve, and if we want techs to understand ADAS, and we want them to become engaged and excited about it, well, we have to tailor the training to do that. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed, 100%.
Yeah.
So a lot of that, and that's the part we were having the conversation earlier, really it's not about the subject. So part of it is, that's the main focus. But it's about catering and the culture shock. So what is the consensus? What is the vehicle platform in that area?
Yeah.
But also just understanding, and some trainers do phenomenal. Some do mediocre. Like I said, I really hate to admit that, but it is a reality.
Yeah.
But when I go out and I talk about training, kind of like we're having conversation, I make it very, very understandable.
Yeah.
When I used to be a tech, I was very unique in the sense where most techs say, I want to work in the back because I don't want to talk to customers. I don't want to do sales. Just give me a car, leave me alone. That is a high percentage of what technicians were.
For sure.
In my case, I worked dealership, and my service advisor would welcome the customer in, get the information, and after that, the customer would specifically tell them, I don't want to talk to you. Just get the car in. I want Andy. And especially if they were waiting, I'd come out and go to the waiting room. We'd explain it through. We'd go ahead and show them what was going on. But I always interviewed everybody I work with, and that's what I always recommend, no matter what industry you're in, interviewing who you're going to speak with or where you're going to go. Because I was asked, should I go to a VOTech college? Should I go to a community college?
Yeah.
Yes, interview 4 instructors and interview 4 students. Know what the experience is. Just don't go through the admin and the admission department, right?
Yeah,
and the retention department, because they're going to sell you, this is the best thing since sliced bread. And that's great. That's their job. Once again, I'm not saying the school's not that, but you want to know the truth, do the interview process. Just like when we're hiring, if you're a business owner, you're hiring a technician, you're hiring an employee, you want to know if it's a perfect fit. So you got to do the same thing. So if you're going to go into training, get to know who that trainer is going to be. What can you offer? Where are your strong suits? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And it really, really makes a difference. So when I started off very young, I actually started from a completely different industry. I brought in import, digital inventory, and all that for storm doors and windows. My family, actually, we used to live in Puerto Rico, and we manufactured storm doors and windows.
Right.
Didn't have a passion for it, so came to the automotive. Would have never thought it was going to be a career. But when I spoke to my customers, if they were a teacher, I made sure that whatever I was working on the car, I put it into terminology and examples that made sense to a school teacher.
Right.
If I was talking to a doctor, I put it into terminology and things that made sense to a doctor. Yes, it requires more work. It requires more study. You have to know and engage what these different aspects are. So if I'm talking to a coal miner, same deal. I have to make sure they understand it. The one thing I tell everybody, if I go into a training, I go into a class, I go into a business, and I come off as the smartest guy in the room, and that's the only thing you got out of it, I missed the mark. That is not what it's about. It should not be about me or about the trainer. Right. The objective is, if I come in here, the objective is that the very next day, you take something or multiple things that I said, and you made money with it. You out and made a better living with it. It motivated you to take yourself and escalate and challenge yourself to go that next step. So if you were holding back because, I really don't understand oscilloscopes, or, I'm worried about the investment, or I've had shops, I can't afford $2,000 or $1,000 a month for coaching. Oh, let's break it down. What is your labor rate? What is your current percentage on your part sales? Well, shoot, you're undercutting yourself here. So let's up this by $10. Let's up this by $20.
Right. Make that extra money and get the information you need.
And look, you can afford it. The coaching, I just gave you 20 minutes of a nugget. Can you imagine what you can get out of a monthly coaching program? And sometimes it's just having that connection.
For sure.
And I feel that we try, the industry's trying, but we're not taking enough time to truly interact and connect first. So that's something else completely unrelated. I'm on the John Maxwell team. I'm John Maxwell certified.
Oh,
and
very
the reason I'm aligned with that is because it's that connection. It really does, to me, make a difference. And I feel that's what's given me the success that I've had. And I feel that there's no secret, potion. There's no magic to it. It's just a matter of just opening our eyes, taking the blinders off, and just making it happen. Interrelational skills, and for somebody who it could be introverted, it doesn't take much.
David, he says ADHD is a superpower. What happened to you?
I've got a broken form of ADHD.
So tell us a little bit about the ADOS business. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing now, because that's a really neat concept.
So on the ADOS side, I've been involved in multiple areas for the ADOS, along with the manufacturers, such as Autel and Launch. And my business partner and I, we co-founded ADOS Network because we decided to leave the corporate world, went into our own businesses. We were kind of wanted to scale down, make our own money, but just kind of control how much time we had.
Yeah.
But we kept hearing tons of issues and a lot of fallacies, and especially in the automotive, they've been a little slower to take on compared to the glass industry. Glass industry was kind of forced, right? It was a little bit different.
Choice.
It was like, you guys have to do this. So you take somebody who is doing nothing but glass, and I'm not undermining or undercutting their skill set, but they were using scan tools. Most of them were not, diagnostic affiliated. It was just diagnostics as far as windshields and leaks and make sure the sealants were there. That was one learning curve on its own. Then all of a sudden, hey, you have to grab a scan tool. And not only have to grab a scan tool, but by the way, there's multiple networks. So you have CAN networks, medium speed, high speed, low speed, you have a LIN bus, and all this stuff is interconnected. And it's still a challenge today. It was like, well, the manufacturer's done a good job this is an ADOS module. So you have a front, forward collision camera warning. Oh, that's an ADOS module. You have an intelligent driver interface. Well, that's an ADOS module. But what they don't understand is the sensor fusion, or if I have a misfire, for example, well, ADOS gets shut off. Now, in the automotive world, we were used to that because we know that if you had a misfire, your ABS and your stability control turned off.
Yeah, we're making adjustments based on that.
Correct. So the same thing happened with ADOS. So the access to the information has been the biggest challenge, and that's been the biggest fear. And in the automotive, that's what I currently still hear. It's like, well, if I spend, and I'm going to use one of the most popular calibration equipments, I spend $85,000 on this piece of equipment. When am I going to make my ROI? Or, I bought it, then what? Like, I don't know how it works. And the one that really gets me, so I don't want the liability. that just makes me chuckle. It's like, so what? You're less liable if you work on brakes and suspension. That's the part I really don't get.
Yeah.
So we decided to put it upon ourselves and make it harder. Right? We have to get this message, get this information out at a major scale. People who should have SI, service information, that don't have it.
Oh man,
I mean, you need it.
Yeah, you have to have it. I mean,
if you don't have it, so let's say, for example, you have SI, and you're looking for a procedure, and every single service information is the same, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. 100%.
And you can find it every single time.
Oh, absolutely.
Same place.
I don't even have to look. I can just glance at the page. It's right there in front of me.
Every single one is also correct, right?
Oh, absolutely.
They never have any kind of errors.
There's never anything wrong.
So my gripe with that is, okay, well, look at your service information. Well, great. You have one.
Yeah.
So that's where the connection and why ADOS Network, building the whole community as a whole, because we have to have that guidance, right?
For sure.
So one day of training, I can do a full week of training. I guarantee that the week after that, you're going to get a car that we didn't talk about, we didn't have any examples, or it's not working how it should, because we know how that goes too. You may have all the theory in the world. Real world and theory don't always meet.
So we did a panel with the manufacturers, and we did a panel with the tool manufacturers, and we did a panel with shop owners. And in that panel with the shop owners, right, we're in a room, the who's who of automotive is there, right? And we're in this room, and a shop owner said, hey, listen, and this is a very high quality shop owner, okay? This is somebody who knows how to run a shop, has done a marvelous job running a shop, extremely smart guy, was one of the first coaches with one of the first coaching companies, right? Really smart operator. And he said, look, as much as things have developed over the years, I can't keep up with all the technical knowledge. He's like, I used to, but I can't now. I depend on my master technician. That's what I pay him for. He's responsible. He said, so one of the conversations we had is like, hey, when to do a calibration, when not to do a calibration. Does this require a calibration? Does it not require calibration? And we got into the subject of front bumper removal. And it was the technician tells him, no, according to everything I can find, if I remove that bumper, I can reinstall that bumper. And as long as I put it back on like it came off, it's fine. It doesn't matter that the sensor's attached to the bumper. It doesn't matter that the sensor's attached somewhere in the front of the car. I don't have to recalibrate it. And so we started talking about that. And we said, no, according to factory service information, it says the car needs to be recalibrated. He said, now, wait a minute. Hold up. Hold the phone. I said, what? He said, here's the service information we have. Doesn't say anything about it anywhere in it.
What service information did he have?
I can't call that out.
It couldn't have been all data. Was it all data?
No, we're going to stay neutral.
Yeah, we're going to
stay neutral.
Super neutral. But long story short, if you went to a different place, and so the representative from that car manufacturer said, "Hold on, let's look at this." And so they sat down and we pulled it all up and we put it side by side. And he said, "Oh shoot." So, what do you mean, oh shoot? He said, "Well, the reason it doesn't have that in that procedure is because it's not on that page. It's on this page. You had to go to a different page to find that." And so, well, now, like if you go over to the platform and you click the little matrix where it tells you, does it need calibration, does it not? They missed it because they're doing the same thing we're doing to come up with that. They're reading it, and it wasn't on that page. And so they didn't see it. It's on another supplement page that's somewhere else that they didn't look at, that nobody thought they need to look at, or it's on a TSB. And so the TSB doesn't correlate to the data that's put into the service information on the matrix for ADAS. Well, that's kind of freaky. You know what I'm saying? So when in doubt, just calibrate it out, right?
Well, what about the TSBs that we were told that the only way you do a TSB is if the criteria matches, right?
Right.
You ever had a car that didn't have a specific DTC, so now it takes it out of TSB, absolutely. But all the symptoms match.
Yeah.
And in the end, when you couldn't fix it, you're like, you know what? Let me go ahead and just try this TSB, and all of a sudden, that was the fix from the beginning. Right. So it's like anything. If we lived in a perfect world, life would be glorious, right? We don't. And that's something that, you know, when I'm talking about these systems and I'm talking about training in general, I tell them, hey guys, in a perfect world, zeros and 100s, they should be there, but we don't. Yeah. We work in the realm of change.
For sure.
Even beyond zeros, not even above the zero, like let's talk about something to get technical, right? On an O2 sensor, 0 to 1 volt. Well, number one, I shouldn't see 0 or 1 because those are fault areas. But what about times I see negatives?
Oh,
I'm not supposed to see a negative, but it does happen.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's where the black and white kind of gets very complicated, right? And that's where the importance of the subject matter expert and the experienced technician, the experienced shop owner, because there's a difference, right?
Yeah.
Really comes into key. And that's where building the community, building that one voice, you know, a team with one voice, one message, was something that one of our teams, and we still handle that right now with our current companies.
Right.
One team, one voice has to be that consensus. So even talking about like the Right to Repair Act, we should all be involved in that.
I agree.
If you're neglecting to do that, if you're neglecting to support that side, you're actually not just hurting yourself, you end up hurting the industry.
Yeah.
And right now, especially on ADAS, I know it's a very controversial subject.
Yeah.
Not just in the automotive, you know, with the insurance companies and the glass and collision industry. There's a lot going on. And that's what we're trying to do, is making sure that we can build that database. So that's the one thing we focused on, was building the database first.
Yeah.
So it's a community, yes, but now if you're running into an issue, you can search it. It's there. If it's not, you put it out there. You have live support as well. But unlike the Facebook groups where anybody can go in and you can always hide behind a fake identity.
Right.
We don't allow that. So there's a lot of security in play for that side. But have you tried looking for an old comment in a Facebook group?
Oh, it's rough.
Another kind of chat platform?
It's not designed to be cataloged in that way, right?
So in this case, that was we completely designed it understanding what the shop's needs were.
Yeah.
And it's all by category, alphabetical order, by systems. You can search it up. And there's videos. So what we did, like I said, I took inspiration from IATN because I was a technician.
Yeah, for sure.
And I believed in the product and the diagnostic network,
the concept,
diagnation. So so I said, we need this for ADAS. So instead of having waveform patterns, for example, we don't get into that side. So if somebody says, well, if I'm going to go deeper into diagnostic and I need oscilloscope waveform, we're going to recommend you work with one of our partners. And even if they're not our partners, say, if somebody, if I need to get a waveform, go to IATN, go to Pico Nerds, contact Pico. They can probably help you out. So obviously my rule is if you don't know it, you don't say it.
Yeah, for sure.
That's it. Sure. If you don't know it, at least do the research. Say, hey, we don't have it. You're going to go here or there. And I think that's what everybody wants, right? As a technician, and coming from a technician aspect, I mean, from a business owner aspect, I did shop management as well. You have certain expectations, and I'd rather you be honest and not tell me. Just point me in the right direction.
Right.
So I've been on the other side of the table. So don't tell me I'm going to get something and then flip it around, turn it into a sales pitch or anything
For sure.
like
I
that.
hate that.
There's
So
a technician that's only going to deal with ADOS anything 12 to 15 times a year going to benefit in joining something like the ADOS network, where the only time they're going to go in there, they're not involved on a daily basis doing ADOS calibration. So they're not seeing it every single day. At most, they're taking the bumper off to do a condenser, and they know that, hey, I got to go recalibrate. And I would say like 95% of the time, the car calibrates. And hell, half the time you can just dynamic calibrate and just go drive it around and it'll go. But the few times you have to do static, it calibrates. At least it spits out and says it's good to go, and you ship it.
well, and that's another controversial. Right? If it's calibrated, so past versus accurate, that's another thing. And dynamic, well, we think dynamic has to be, because dynamic, you just drive it, right? It's very simple, straightforward. Except when your tool says you can drive up to 35 mile per hour, so it says 0 to 35 mile per hour, that's your limit. Well, okay, I'm going to go take it for a test drive. I'm going to take it between 34 and 35. I'm not going to go past that number. But then you find out that if you keep it below 25, that's really the sweet spot that it wants. And I bring up that example because we have a video on a Hyundai AVM dynamic. So you can do static or dynamic on that. Some cars let you do either or. And the specifications don't match the reality. And we see that also with static. Oh, 4,000 millimeter, or, and then all of a sudden you go, oh no, it's 3,800. Oh, it's only 200 millimeter. Yeah, 200 millimeter makes a difference when it comes to calibrations. So even on the dynamic ones, they'll benefit from, because you're going to say, oh, I jump at the car, go, and that's it. And that's not always the case.
The issue, though, is that at some point, you have to trust your equipment. You have to trust the information that you have. For example, I dropped a lot of money on my ADOS machine. If it says it's good to go, I have to trust that it's good to go. I don't know the software in the background. I don't know necessarily every little spec. Could I look it up and say, well, I'm going to take some piece of string and some measuring tapes and I'm going to map it?
Well, that's why you bought the equipment, to avoid that.
What's that?
That's why you bought the equipment, is to avoid that.
Exactly. So I'm going to rely that my software is up to date and the machine's accurate and I'm doing what the machine's telling me to do. And we document the whole process to say the machine's telling us to, roll it forward 5 feet or whatever, and then position this over here or whatever, right? And as we go through, we take pictures showing that we did it. Here's us doing it. And now it's all green. It's good to go. So I've got to be able to trust the equipment. Getting into the nitty gritty, like it's too much. It's too much. Perfect example of this, by the way. I bought a Motorcraft engine, 2.7 liter with the blown up chains. Why did the chains blow up? The crankshaft pulley bolt is not properly torqued. Okay. We get this brand new engine in. Guess what's already installed? Crankshaft pulley's already installed. It's already bolted in. It's got the little pin mark. It's in. Guess what we didn't touch? Guess what happened? Like a month later, damn chain popped. And I shipped it back to Ford. I mean, that's what I did. I just shipped it back to Ford and said, this is your problem, not mine. They put another engine in there for them. But I needed to be able to trust. I mean, could I have gone through and said, hey, double check? But then at that point, I'm buying a new bolt. Hey, pull it out. We're putting a brand new bolt in to be 100% sure, because I can't even trust the flipping factory to do their job. At some point, you have to draw the line and say, hey, if the service information says 52 foot-pounds, I'm going to do 52 foot-pounds. Even if in 5 years we find out that it was backing out and causing accidents, it's not my fault. Like, I can't do anything about that.
I think the greed has complicated things. I think greed. I think, no, I shouldn't say big corporation, but I think, for instance, we talk about insurance companies. Okay, I sat through 3 presentations in a board meeting one time. Okay, and the presentations were talking about insurance companies paying for calibration. Okay, they were talking about right to repair. And so they were looking at this from kind of a high level perspective, but it was, should we support right to repair? And what is our position? If we're going to make a position statement on insurance paying for pre-scans, post-scans, and insurance paying for calibrations, what would that look like? Right? And you would not believe the spin that was put on it from a collision organization, okay? Somebody that's supposed to be working for the collision industry to make their lives better. The spin that was put on that to say the insurers are really working to help you. And by the time that it was all said and done, all those people got up because this was a very well-paid lobbyist speaking to these people. When he got up and walked out, buddy, they were eating out of his hand. And they're like, yeah, the insurance companies, they're our friend. They're working for us. They're trying to make this work. Maybe we shouldn't consider right to repair. And I'm sitting here going, now, wait a minute, guys. I'm not in collision, but I've heard everything that you've talked about collision has done for all these years with the insurance companies and how they've made it all about them and all about their profits. And now you're telling me that we should be trusting them to tell us when a car should be calibrated?
I have a perfect example. So there's a recent TSB on Ford IPMA reprogramming, reflashing. Now, I'm not going to bring up the companies that are involved with providing insurance companies with levels of complication. We'll use that terminology to keep it very, very vague and simple.
Yeah.
Not poking at anybody. Now, the downside is they were given the information, but they didn't continue working consulting with them.
Yeah.
So they took these levels. Okay, we're going to run with these levels. And that means that all programming pays 1 hour. It pays $100, right? All programming. Well, the problem is that IPM reflash is a 3-hour reflash.
Yep.
So that means I'm going to pay you $100 for 3 hours worth of programming.
Yep.
Because they've put it into one box, one segment, one category.
Yeah.
All reflash, it pays $100. Well, no. And in the automotive, we're used to it, right? Where we know that's not the case. And one person just isn't enough.
Yeah.
So you talked about that one person, and sadly, a lot rode on that coattail. It needs to be a louder voice. It has to be multiple voices in unison and calling out and bringing, because this is all about documentation, right? So in the end, it's all documentation, documentation, documentation. So when I'm doing any kind of support, any kind of help, if you go through our site and you hear me talk to anybody, there's 2 things I tell them to always focus on. Communication with your customer, communication with whoever, if you're working with a service advisor, or dispatcher, or communication then with the insurance adjuster, whatever.
Yeah.
That is prime. That communication should be 100% backed by the documentation.
Yes.
Well, can you prove it? Yes. Here it is. Here's why.
Yeah.
Now, some of that documentation, I'm not going to get into the minutia of it. Some tools accidentally harm you because, and I'll call it out, calibration time, okay? Oh, you did this calibration in 4 minutes. No, it took us 4 hours battling that guy. When we finally got it to finish, it only took 4 minutes to run the calibration.
Right, correct.
But there's no documentation showing everything else that I did up to there.
Yeah.
It wasn't working. The bracket was bent. We have to fix the bracket. So there's a lot more time into there. So the problem is, excuse me, the lack of that documentation, the lack of that communication is tremendous. And of course, that's
they still don't pay it, by the way.
What's that?
They still don't pay it. You can present all the documentation you want. They go, nope, we pay an hour.
Yep.
You go,
well,
okay.
And that's the part where once it needs to be more verbal, because what I've noticed, and it's incorrect, because we all know as business owners, you can't dictate what my pricing is.
Yeah.
I can be absolutely overpriced, astronomically overpriced,
right?
Undeniably overpriced, but that's my price.
Yeah, exactly. I charge what I charge. You can say no. But you can't tell me what I'm going to charge.
So that's the one thing that on the insurance side is, well, that's just the cost of doing business. That's how a lot of the owners and a lot of the technicians, so I'll understand that a lot of these, especially the newer technicians, they're entrepreneurs, so they're coming in for the first time. It's like, well, this is the cost of business. No, this is not the cost of business. And the more you allow it to happen, the more we're going to get away with it.
Well, so that's what I was going to say is I think of Amish Patel, and I was thinking about his shop and how they went through the whole setup where he was literally sitting down and going through a calibration with the calibration technician, documenting step by step, taking pictures, clocking it with a clock just to make sure they paid for the time. And he said, it has nothing. I'm like, dude, this is ridiculous. You just spent 8 hours going through this and presenting this file. He said, it's because I'm not letting them do this. I'm not willing to let them dictate this. We have to stop letting them dictate how we do business, right? Now, I've been privy to some interesting insurance meetings, right? Where they're discussing loss ratios and they're talking about the fact that, hey, if the loss ratio is too high, we got to get that number in line somehow because our shareholders aren't going to be happy. So we have to adjust somewhere. What's the easiest thing to cut? What's the easiest thing to adjust? Where can I make the most money back? And so it's smack, knock the money out of it. Smack, knock the money out of it. And when ADOS came onto the scene, that was one of the big things is like, hey, whatever we have to do to get that money out. But now you talk to Ken Miller. Ken Miller's president of, I think he's still president for another year of the Northwest Association or Northeast Association, does the Northeast show, AASP New Jersey, right? And so Ken had that mini, I want to say it was either a Honda or a Mini Cooper or something like that in the shop a while back, where the car went to another shop, right? He looked at the car, said, hey, here's my estimate. Insurance company doesn't approve it, takes it, puts it in another shop. Later on, car comes back. It's been hit in the back, very light hit. And he goes into it and he tears it apart and he finds out, oh my gosh, guess what? Seatbelts are cut. Seatbelts have been ground in the side, notches cut out of them so they won't lock anymore. And it's got a resistor in it. And he shows the client and the client's super upset. And he's like, I can't believe that. Like, I've already got post-traumatic stress disorder from what happened before. And now you're telling me that I wasn't safe and my kids weren't safe in the car because they did this? He's like, why would they do that? And Ken said, well, they did that because the insurance company said this is what you're going to pay. Okay, so I'm not going to fix the car, right? Well, there are people who will do that. There are people who don't have any ethics or morals that will go out there and say, well, I'm just here to get paid, bud. Like, if you're telling me I'm going to do this job in 2 hours and it's going to take me 6 hours to do it right, guess what? I'm going to cut some corners. I don't care. Not my problem. Not my fault. Like, y'all are the ones who decided this is what you'll pay. Now, I know that's not right. You know that's not right. And you know that causes liabilities and puts somebody at risk. And, like, I can deal with the liabilities. Putting somebody at risk is not something I'm okay with, right? Especially when it's my decision and I know it's the wrong decision to make. Well, but there's a lot of technicians in our environment who say, dude, I'm not getting paid enough to do this. So what do? They cut a corner. Now, I think the majority of technicians in our space would not do that. It only takes one to get somebody killed.
Absolutely.
Right? And okay, well, sure, there's how many billion of people on this planet? Big deal. Who cares? We lose one, right? That's their mindset. But you might feel that way until it's your daughter, until it's your son, until it's your wife, right? Now, all of a sudden, that's a very different argument for that person.
Well, and I'll take your metric and actually change it because you say we lose one. And it's something that I always thought of when I was a technician, and I've always imparted when I did VOTech teaching, when I go into training and I go into shops. Yeah. It's not one. Because if I left, let's say we made a mistake, not even intentionally did something, okay? Because I just don't stand for that.
Yeah.
I made a mistake. We didn't torque down the wheels.
Yeah.
And that wheel comes off that axle, right? Well, there are other cars next to that car, right?
For sure.
So let's say you're doing 75 mile per hour, right front wheel comes off.
Yeah.
You know you're going in for a spin.
For sure.
So it's not one life. If that car had a family in it, multiply it by that number, multiply it by the bystanders that were there, multiply if it was an intersection, right?
For sure.
So it really isn't one. And part of this, now we will have our bad apples. I don't like having to swallow that pill.
Yeah, for sure.
But I also feel that part of it goes into the education and the lecture, right?
Yeah.
They shouldn't have to learn once something happened.
Yeah.
I don't want it to go there, right? So as a father, right, and as parents, we don't want that to happen to our kids. We should have the very same sentiment with anybody we work with.
Absolutely.
So telling them, here's why you shouldn't, because I've had the conversation, well, I have a lifted truck. So technically, all I have to do is take the frame, lift it 4 inches higher, and compensate. Now the camera's level for the specification. I've heard this more than once. You gave me the look. I have heard this conversation more than once. It's like, no, it's not how that works. Because the angle of approach has now changed.
Yep.
And then they go, oh, yeah.
Yep.
Because they didn't think about it. So you're getting the concept of, we had the conversation, I just want it to pass. I want it to leave.
Yep.
Yes, you got to pass, but it's not accurate. And it's not a matter of, well, it'll still drive down the road. Yes, to an extent. And that's the other downside, right? With ADOS, we will have our only first true safety recognized ADOS starting 2029. I'm not sure if you knew that or not.
No, I did not know that.
Very important for all the listeners. As far as when it comes to ADOS, no ADOS system is currently considered a safety implementation device. It is a voluntary safety device, and it is what we call preliminary options. There's no SAE standards, so there's no true safety implementation into it.
Right.
So that's why we also have a dozen targets, right? We're doing different methods, different strategies, what's going to work best until we can find a standardization, which that's good and bad. Because if for those of us that are working in the ADAS industry and you're making good money, just think about it. If we start standardizing, it becomes one single target. Well, it makes my life easier, but now we've also swallowed down, we've condensed the complication, hopefully condensed the complication to it. But 2029 is when we enter mandatory automatic electric braking.
Oh.
That is the first modern ADAS, because really ADAS goes into ABS, if you want to be really technical, right? As far as modern ADAS, automatic electric braking becomes mandatory 2029. So for the listeners that are doing ADAS and you're working on Subarus and you're working on Teslas, for example, well, no front radar, right? Eyesight on the Subarus, all camera-based, works really, really good because now there's an SAE standard. The SAE standard stipulated that it had to be front radar-based. So you're going to have to get used to, on 2029 and newer, those vehicles will now have radar calibration as well. So the shops that haven't got into radar calibrations, like I'm just doing windshield, you just lost part of your revenue.
Huge chunk.
Absolutely.
Are they factoring in all the other components that are required to properly brake the vehicle?
So they're not removing
things
camera.
Like tires and braking systems. Like now the brakes have to meet a certain spec, because otherwise you put an inferior brake system, cheap material on the brake pads, cheap rotors, because whatever, right? You just want to get the brake job out and you're selling it for $199. You want to turn the bay, you slap whatever on there. But now that doesn't quite meet the spec, and so the car is expecting to stop in 325 feet, but it's now going to take 335 feet, and you just crushed a kid.
So I've been privy to, I worked for parts manufacturers as well. I've had a pretty interesting career, and that's another area that doesn't get heavily regulated. Brakes, as far as the certifications, the DEA3 certification that you get, it is voluntary. Number one, it's privately contract too. So there's no government certification or anything like that. So that's the part that gets scary. And you bring up a good point, and that's the difference from being an ethical and professional shop versus being the ones that are just trying to get by. And nothing against
I've said this 1,000 times, but the consumer doesn't know the difference.
And you're absolutely correct. And I think we have done ourselves a disservice. I think the industry made a huge mistake with good, better, best.
Yeah.
Because if we think about any other industry, if you contract a plumber, you contract an AC repair, so your AC goes out in your house or in your business, right?
Yeah.
Hey, the AC's down. All right, you need a contactor, or you need a thermostat. You don't get, well, I have this contactor, or I have this condenser. They say you need a contactor, or you need, a step up. Here's the price. Do you want your AC to work?
Right.
And it's a yes or no. And I think that trying to give the customers more options really hurt the industry. It's not about the revenue. It's not even about the profit margin. Forget about profit margin. Just doing what's right. Because if I make it cheaper, I have to do something to make it cheaper. Either I'm changing the materials, or I'm changing the amount of material, and you hit it right on the head. Now that it's mandatory, more than ever, those brakes need to be to spec. Because those cars are supposed to stop on their own.
Within a specific,
or even just even slow down ratio, right? So you need to reduce speed. So a customer that has, so I'm not sure if you know this or not, as far as rotors versus pads, they're married. So you have to have a hard material and a soft material. So let's say, for example, I have it was originally, so let's talk about European. So it's mostly European, semi-metallic, hard friction with a soft rotor, because most of those rotors you can't turn. We're using the rotor as a sacrificial piece. So now I change it and I put ceramic on there. So yes, you get less dusting, because the number one complaint in your customer is what? I don't want those semi-metallics because they're noisy, number one, and they dust. Give me the ceramics. They're cleaner. Have you ever noticed what it does to the actual braking? And it's because, if you get to the scientific level, right, at this point now we're getting into metallurgy and all that.
Right.
It's because you're using two soft materials. You no longer have a sacrificial. Then ceramic also insulates heat.
Yep.
That's the other problem. So we go back to the education standpoint. And that's why I've been very passionate about it, because I believe you can get into more trouble about what you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
You're absolutely
the
right.
more shops, the more technicians know, they're going to think more about what they're doing.
Here's the challenge, right? So let's look at the good, better, best concept, right? Why did they do that? Well, they did that because not all consumers could afford everything, right? And I use good, better, best in some cases. For instance, like, hey, I've got people that they're going to buy a cheap tire, whether they're buying that cheap tire from me or they're buying it from somebody else. Now, I'm obviously not selling a super cheap junky tire, right? I'm not willing to do that.
Tires are different, though, because at the very base level, though, the tire still meets certain specs. It's an XL with this load rating, this speed rating, at this size. And even if it's a cheap tire, it still meets those specs.
I'm not disagreeing with that. But I guess here's my point, though, is that is really where that came from, in my opinion. I think good, better, best has been in all kinds of industries all over the place, but tires are kind of where it started in automotive, right? Is where I was going. And so I think that they learned that consumers like choice, right? Most consumers don't pick the cheapest option. Most consumers pick the mid option. Now, smart business people set that up to where their most profitable option is the mid option, and that's what they go with. But I guess where I'm going with that is that to a degree, a lot of these shops are going to say, yeah, but it's still the consumer's vehicle. They still have to have a choice. Well, but the problem for us is like, I can't stop at the safety line, right? The safety is where I'm at, right? It has to be safe. It has to be properly repaired. Now, within properly repaired, I am okay with saying good, better, best within that. I don't have a problem with doing that. It has to be calibrated. I'm not taking calibration off and saying, I'm going to waive calibration because you said you wanted to pay less and now it's less expensive. I'm not doing that. But maybe it's that, hey, you can use this brand part versus that brand part. Well, the problem is, especially right now, is that I can go buy those cheap parts. And as a shop owner, as a consumer, I would say, well, they're selling it. It must be decent enough quality that it would be okay to put on the car. Right? Why is it okay for them to sell the junk parts? Now, that we know it happens, right? We know that absolute junk parts are plaguing our industry right now. Even, I shouldn't say this, but I know of a couple part companies who expressed concern that they had bought parts from a wholesaler or from a supplier that were counterfeit parts. They were supposedly from the manufacturer, an OES supplier. They weren't, right?
And I'm with you 100%. I'll give you one great example. I used to work, I mentioned, for a parts manufacturer, not supplier, manufacturer. And in everything I've done in my life, I have to believe in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I have to believe in the product. A lot of times I went to go work for an employer because I was a user or a purchaser. I was a consumer of that. It's like, I know how it works, et cetera, et cetera. I left the job and it had nothing to do with money, and it's because of the direction they went. And they went with the direction of, we should stop selling this U.S.-made quality part because we have a higher profit margin.
Yeah.
Because we bought our competitor that was outpricing us because it's a price point. Now, I'm not mentioning names. We actually had benchmarking charts that marketing and sales would go out to compare that product versus the product they just purchased. So when they purchased that company out, they didn't purchase it to improve it. It's like, oh, we now added thousands of parts number into our list. Hey, those charts, those boards that you have, those cutaways, they need to disappear. And
all of a sudden it was acceptable to sell their product. Yeah.
So when that happened, my moral compass, and not everybody feels the same. It's like, who cares? You're still making money. I do care.
Yeah, see, that's
like,
me.
I can't align myself with that. So when I go into somewhere, it's like, well, how come one part looks like this and one part looks like that? And when you represent that company, you can't always say what you really should say, and you have to. It's your job, right? So now you're against that wall, which is why I love the position I'm in now, where I contract, because I can be open and honest, and I can say it right in front of the engineers, like, hey, you guys did this, because I'm not fearing, hey, I'm going to lose my job,
right?
But the education standpoint, so we go back around. It's that consumer, the shop owner, the technician education. And yes, I'm with you 100%. If it's a window switch, for example, good, better, best. So if the window switch goes out, we can talk about it being a safety issue, because if you're in the bad part of town, because I don't know where everybody lives, you're in the bad part of town where if that window doesn't go up, you're going to be held at gunpoint, or it's raining, now your car's going to get flooded. But it's not crash impacting. So tires, brakes, suspension.
For sure.
Those are different aspects. You know, you talk about other items. Once again, we can play that game. And sadly, I mentioned that, right? And it's too late because the industry is driven that way. And any of us who is in marketing as well, you know that you actually build more revenue, build more sales, and get more engagement when you offer a high and midpoint. Because the sense of the psychological aspect, I'm getting a deal.
Yep, absolutely. And I think you're right. Like, we've taught the consumer to look for a deal when it comes to auto repair. Now, there's another byproduct of all this too. Maybe it's not a byproduct. Maybe it's a cause of this, is that right now consumers are pressured at a level they've never been pressured at before, right? And the inflationary pressure over the last 50 years on the American consumer alone is unbelievable, right? They don't have the money.
No, don't absolve them of their responsibility. They voted for the garbage. They voted for the garbage. Then the inflation came, and then rather than tightening down and making sure that they were pinching their pennies, they're still standing in line for their stupid iPhones. So it's entirely their fault.
Yeah,
I don't feel bad for them at all.
I'm just saying.
Guess what? You want to drive your shitbox car that you're paying $1,000 a month for? This is how much it's going to cost to repair. I could give two craps what your situation is. Guess what? You drive a newer car than I do.
Well, and it's living, when we can have this conversation for ages, the living within means, right? And that's the issue. We've created an illusion that I have to have a certain status or give an impression of a certain status. And I tell people, when I talk to technicians, that's the cost of evolution. So same deal. So I wanted the latest, greatest car, whatever brand it is, and I wanted all these features. Well, it's like a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. Anybody can buy a Ferrari or Lamborghini. You get the loan out, you have it. The cheapest part, the buying it is the cheapest part. The maintenance is where it's at. Can you afford to maintain it? Then you find out, right? So that's the biggest issue. ADAS is a substance. We're talking about ADAS, right? So that customer gets an alignment. Hey, your alignment no longer is, depending on where you're in the U.S., anywhere from $70 to $200. Once again, depends on where in the U.S. you are. Those the current price margins. It's no longer that price. It's like, oh, we're going to do your alignment, and you need to do an ADAS calibration. What do you mean an ADAS calibration? Well, according to the information, if we do an alignment, we need to align your ADAS. As an example.
That's the ridiculous part, though. These people don't even realize they're buying.
Oh, no, they have no clue.
They don't know that they're buying this car with all this junk on it. I'm on the phone with this lady, and she's like calling shop after shop after shop, looking for somebody to install this like millimeter wave on the front of her Honda or whatever. And I said, well, what makes you think you need it? Well, I got this code. It's like, okay, well, I told her, well, one, there's a TSB on this. Two, it might just be dirty. Like, we might be able to just clean it off. But three, you need to bring it in. We need to do the testing. And then after that, I got to be able to calibrate it. And then depending on if the car aligns, whether I can even calibrate it to begin with, I have to start with an alignment. She's like, well, how much is all that going to be? I'm like, I have no idea. But I mean, I'll tell you, alignment's about $133. And then if it's just one calibration, it's about another $175. And then depending on the testing that we have to do, it's about $100 to $200, depending on the type of testing. So she's like, so I'm in it for $600 just for this one little... I'm like, yes. And she's like, this is ridiculous. I didn't even want this on this car. I had no idea that I was buying this car with this thing on it. And I'm like, yeah, maybe, I don't know, do some flipping research on the second most expensive thing you buy in your life.
That sounds like work.
You know how many people bought houses? How many people bought houses without also buying an inspection on that house? They bought it as is.
Blind, yep.
That is the most insane thing I have ever heard.
The inspection is how much? Anywhere from $300 to $1,000, once again, depending on the market.
$1,000 on a $400,000 house? $1,000 to prevent you from finding out that, hey, I've got mold, or the foundation sinking, or I've got all sorts of flooding that's been like dripping over the last 10 years. Nobody could, because they do infrared now.
Listen, well, now it's required in some states. And what's crazy about that is now they're upset at the inspector, right? And they're like, I really don't want to have to go through this. I just want to buy the house. No, you just want the thing. Like, you don't understand what you're doing to yourself, right?
Well, that correlates to the responsible shopping technician. Why go to this shop? Because I go there and nothing's ever wrong with my car. They only do what I tell them.
Oh, man.
Because, see, when I was a technician, the advisors hated me. And I said, I'm going to put everything that's wrong. You can and that's why I ended up doing the advisorship myself, because they couldn't figure it out. So we'd build a plan. Hey, you have this, this, and this. Here's your order of priority. Let's handle this first, working with their budget, because once again, we understand the customer has their budget, right? We're going to do this first. This is high priority. We can wait on this, ... But I put every single thing that was wrong with that vehicle on that RO.
Yeah.
There were many times, I can't tell you how many times, like this is how bad they hated me. There were times that off a one-page RO, there was no one page. I needed a second page.
Yeah.
Front and back. It's like, here are all the things that are just like, oh my gosh, this car's about to blow up. Let's talk about what's important. This is what's wrong, because if the car leaves and then something happened, and that's why I left dealership, because I used to work dealership, and if you talked about something that was happening and the customer didn't complain, that was considered campaigning. I'm not going to mention the brand. The brand changed their methodology to where if the customer complained about a click and I said I heard a knock, it wasn't accepted. I couldn't fix it.
You're kidding.
I'm not kidding. If it was an oil seep and I wrote oil leak, I would get back flagged.
That's rough.
That's what drove me out of the OE.
Yeah.
You want to talk about problems? That is a disservice to the customer. And once again, I can't work somewhere that
I'm
I
going to
don't
assume it
align
wasn't Toyota, but Toyota had a how far has the drip gone down the strut before we consider it blown or not?
Yeah.
Like, well, what? Why are they leaking to start with?
It's seeping, David. It's
Yes,
not
it's
leaking.
seepage, not leakage.
It's seeping, but only down 2 millimeters acceptable. 7 millimeters, now we have to do something.
If you wash the car and you kind of wipe it, you're all good, right? That's how it goes.
Yeah, it's fine.
Wipe it, it's fine.
Just go through the car wash before you inspect it.
Going back to your ADAS side with that one customer, the one complication that shops will have is you can't force the customer to do the repair.
Yeah, for sure.
And now they're getting all this technology, right? And pretty soon it becomes mandatory. So then, what do you do?
I have no problem letting the customer walk out the door and not doing anything. If they decline. Okay, see you. Goodbye. My issue is with the shop down the street that doesn't know anything about ADAS, doesn't know anything about this, that, or the other, will then align the car because they just declined my $400 alignment because it required a blind spot calibration, right? Because that's what the OE says. They go down the street. Sometimes it's the flipping dealer that they go to.
Yeah.
$100 because they're running a special on a Saturday, $100 alignment Saturday special, and they get the car aligned. They never check. They don't want to know. They're like, we're not going to check. We're not going to bother, whatever. They do the alignment, out the door it goes, or they take it down to the quick lube or whatever, the chain, and they do the alignment. They don't check either because they haven't updated their machine, and the machine's not flagging it. And then I look like the asshole because I'm wanting to charge $400, and then they'll call me and be like, "Hey, I got it done for $100." So okay, they didn't do it right.
We may or may not have seen a video from a manufacturer that went out and was doing a little bit of research on calibrations in their shops, and there is a target tied to a chain link fence. There's a technician pushing the car back and forth as the dude in the car is hitting calibrate on the scan tool, trying to get it to calibrate.
If I were to share what I've seen, I mean, you'd have months of content. I'm going to tell you right now.
Yeah.
I've seen no stands with a technician holding targets. I've seen a technician holding a dihedral, so the triangle for the radar, holding that, trying to work it through, okay? Forget obstruction, all that fun jazz. I may or may have not seen more than one dealership. Once again, trying to not put too much mud in my face because I want to play nice with everybody. I'm trying to be neutral, but we got to call out what's wrong. Where, hey, you need a calibration. No, two of the dealerships said I didn't need it, or two of the dealerships had it calibrated, and all it did was erase the codes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, no lights, no codes, no problems. It's a huge issue, right? So, because I just told you that none of these systems are safety until 2029, and it's only one of them. The criteria that if you go into your scan tools for the guys that are techs in here, and if you're an owner and you're versed with your scan tool, go into your scan tools and look at your live data. So we always talked about drive cycles, right? Mm-hmm. We never really got to see it. We know it's a 2-cycle trip or a 3-cycle trip. So we had it on theory and method. It's in description and operation, but there's nothing in the scan tool that told us. Go into your live data on a lot of these new cars. You'll see test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. On a lot of the ADAS modules, ADAS components, if you see 8 tests, what is that telling you? How many drive cycles is that?
Mm-hmm.
So that code won't set until it's satisfied. So if I clear the code, go drive the car, well, didn't come back.
Good to go. Shipper boys, shipper.
And then if it's
and then the drive cycle might be something weird where it's got to go 30 to 55 miles an hour for 10 minutes.
Exactly. It's not key cycles.
And if they don't go look.
Blind spot's a perfect example. Why reset the code and drove it around town and nothing happened? Yeah, you didn't take it above 35 mile per hour. So it didn't even start the drive cycle.
Yeah.
And when it comes to glass and collision, that's been my big challenge with them because
for sure
they didn't
even understand it in the first place.
They didn't do test drives to begin with, so they didn't understand that. So they said, "What do you mean?" So when you say drive cycle, okay, well, we drove it, we parked it, we drove it again. No, that's not a drive cycle. You did 2 drives, not 2 drive cycles. But today we're getting more information than we ever did. Now it's not that it wasn't there; it's we're being privied to the PIDs because it was always there because drive cycles existed, but we had nothing to validate it.
For sure.
So now we have a lot more of that to our advantage. And that when we talked about, what ADAS network is and what we do and what I'm passionate about and what we do is making sure that we're providing that information. So we're either providing the view, the snapshot, the access, or if it's just the data. Hey, what is this or what is that? So with the glass industry, I have a section in there specifically for pre-scan. They have no clue about DTC. So, hey, I have this pre-scan. Is this good or bad? Can I go? Like, what does this mean? So it's not even about a true problem. Hey, I don't have the education. I don't have the training.
Yeah.
Can you lead me down there? So obviously, the best thing long-term is, yes, this is the gap, but somebody also needs to be trained. And when it comes to glass industry, oh my gosh, you talk to most of the guys, how are you trained? Well, I rode in the van another guy for 3 days. And then they said, this is your van and have at it.
We're good. I can put the windshield in.
That's all they got. Yeah, have you ever used a scan tool? Never in my life. They put it in my hand. I'm scared to death of this thing.
Yeah. Yep. Let me ask you this in closing. With your experience, if you were to guess at what percentage of technicians in the workforce right now are ready for the 24, 25 model cars that they're going to be seeing in just a few years, even let's say 23 model cars right now, what percentage would you say are ready for the technology that's in the current automobile?
You're going to hate that number. I mean, that number... Being realistic on ADAS only, correct?
Yeah.
On ADAS only, looking at full industry automotive, glass, and collision, I'd say the number is south of 20 to 50%, 15%, 15 to 20%.
Yeah.
Truly ready.
Yeah.
Truly ready. And the biggest issue, and it's not their fault, is because it's continuously emerging, continuously changing. So...
Monique is trying her best to make him laugh.
That's why, the whole us getting into training only was not an option because I can talk to you today. I said, tomorrow you have something different. Next year, the whole atmosphere changed.
Yeah.
So when I'm working with a lot of these training institutes, that's usually like, well, we had a class that we launched last year, 2 years ago, but by today's standards, it's obsolete.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
That's the biggest challenge.
I've seen it.
We need to do better. Because everybody asks, why did you do that? Why didn't this exist before? It's like, I don't know why. It should have. Yeah. I built it because it needed to happen. I think this should be happening not just with ADAS. I picked it as a niche because I was closely related to it. We should have something. And more importantly, it's the issue with networking. I can't tell you, and I don't want to bash Facebook and Facebook groups. I participate in them, just trying to make sure I'm putting my best out. But you've been in them. You know how that goes. We as an industry, as a whole, need to do much better about uplifting the industry, uplifting our peers. If I have all data and you have Identifix and you have Pro Demand, we talked about SI not always being perfect. Hey, I should be able to reach out. Hey, I have my SI, but it's just not making sense. It's not working.
Yeah.
Can you give me a copy? Can you look it up? Give me help. Or hey, I'm working on this 2020. Have you seen this problem before? Oh yeah, that has a known bulletin on it. Because sometimes, like I said, even with having the information, we miss it. So that's why I really was excited and humbled to be able to come onto the podcast because this aligns perfectly with the mindset that I have and the people that I've aligned myself in the industry with. We're not looking to self-profit. Yeah. We're looking to uplift the industry
and make it
first.
Happen. Yeah. Amen.
So it's ADASnetwork.org, right?
ADASnetwork.org.
Yeah.
I love that.
Awesome.
That's awesome, dude. Thank you for being here.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.